into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook out there. I am your host, Rudolph, joined as always by AJ Haefele, jamming out to the Kungs. Today, we will be talking about not the Avalanche, as let's face it, their offseason is for the most part complete unless they want to do something a little bit extra.
Yeah, all contracts are signed. Everything is good to go. All the criticisms about all the times that they've waited to do stuff in the past,
they're done now.
Where are they at?
Wishing there was still something left to do a little bit.
Yeah, ain't nothing left for us to talk about. We don't have 3 months to argue about Mikko Rantanen's contract.
So instead, we figured we'd take a look at some of the teams that do still have some work to do, ranging from minor contract signings to a few teams having significant work to do to get their roster set and get under the cap. I guess we can just start with the obvious one here, the team with the most work left to do, that being Tampa Bay. Yes, they have $3 million in cap space, but they still need to sign Anthony Cirelli, Mikhail Sergachev, and Erik Cernak. So that's not reasonable with less than $3 million of cap space. I guess we'll start there.
Yeah, I tell you, Erik Cernak saw that Ryan Graves contract and was like,
oh, baby.
Where that money? So, he was pretty excited about it. Sergachev was always in line to get a legit deal.
Yep.
So I think, he's been so good for them and just been getting better. And, as they pay Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough,
yep,
all the money that they owe them like $14 million.
Yep.
Over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And both of those guys getting deep into their 30s. Like, you're fine with it because you just won a cup. They're great. Everything is great. You're happy. You're loving life. But to have Sergachev there is a beautiful feather in the cap to kind of weather their aging curve a little bit, where you can transition. If one of those guys starts to fall off a little bit more, bam, Sergachev just takes his role. You swap their spots and you hope that you can manage the declines a little better.
Without Sergachev and Cernak signed, they have the $14.5 million they're spending on McDonough and Hedman, and then Braden Coburn at $1.7 million and Luke Schenn at $800K. And that's 4 defensemen. That's it that they have on their NHL roster right now.
Yeah.
The other side of this, that Tampa's life has already proven to not be easy to try and shed cap for these guys, as they were unable to literally give Tyler Johnson away even on a $5 million deal for the next 4 years. So they need to find a way to make room, and the only way that's going to happen is by trading some of these guys.
Definitely. Anthony Cirelli, you might, if you just look at his numbers, just flat out, I'm going to go look at his box score numbers, and you see it and you're like, I mean, he's solid. It's a little better than JT Compher.
Yeah.
So what's the price there? Well, for one, he's a Selke caliber center.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, he would be a top 6 player basically anywhere else.
Yeah. That I don't think it, with a 44-point season and that defensive prowess, pretty easy to see for a lot of teams in the league.
Yeah, definitely. So that's, and where Tampa Bay has been it's been an embarrassment of riches is between Stamkos and Point and Johnson and Cirelli.
Yep.
They've been able to move guys around their lineup and get a lot of production out of them wherever they go.
Yep.
Which, not to make everything about the Avs, but you notice that versatility that Tampa Bay has is something we've talked a lot about with Colorado.
Exactly.
The ability to mix and match and fill in when guys do get hurt. So it's not hard to see what Colorado was looking at when they built their team. It was this.
Yep.
And this is the inevitable problem, right? You think you fast forward several years, Colorado could be in the cap crunch trying to figure out what to do because Alex Newhook's ELC just ended, and
Yeah.
He's coming off of a 75-point season, and you're like, son of a...
Turns out when you have a bunch of good players, you have to pay them. Crazy.
Yeah. And, where they spend all offseason just trying to do anything to get rid of money. So, where they are right now, I hope the Avs front office is keeping a close eye on it, because there's a decent chance it's where the Avs end up. Now, if they get a cup out of it, you don't care.
Right.
You would take that trade any day. But where they are right now, it's tough. Like, as happy as they are to have just won it, you're also saying, okay, well, we've still got Braden Point's entire prime. We've still got whatever's left of Stamkos and Kucherov's primes, Hedman, Vasilevsky. We still have the core of a team that can easily be
cup contending.
Yeah, you could talk about them as the next dynasty.
Yep.
If you wanted to, because they've been doing it for 10 years already. Yep. But now it's like, okay, they've just won the cup, but they still have so many guys right in the heart of their careers where they're going to continue to be scary, but there is real work to do here. $2.8 million isn't enough for three RFAs, even if those RFAs aren't any good.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you get Chernak with the current amount of cap space that they have.
Yeah,
but you're not even close on Cirelli and Sergachev.
Right. You're not coming anywhere near being able to get either one of those cats.
Yep. So in the chat, Vaguely Sober says they re-signed Pat Maroon. Honestly, I think that's fine for them because they got Pat Maroon for 2 years at $900K.
Yeah,
so they got a guy that they can play on the cheap for the next couple of years.
Yep,
and it's
so
just
barely above league minimum.
Right, exactly.
Like barely above league minimum. All you're asking that guy to do is not crater.
Yep, just be an NHL player for you, and then they. Looking at their forward core, realistically, they're probably going to have to move out at least one of Gord, Johnson if they can, or Alex Killorn.
I'm not surprised they haven't found a taker because Killorn is 31. He's got 3 years left. Johnson is 30. He's got 4 years left.
Yep.
Gord is 28. And he's got 5 years left at 5.1 on a deal that the second it was signed, everybody went,
oh boy.
I don't know about that one, where they might have gotten a little overzealous in keeping their own guys together there.
And so, realistically, the only one of them that is trending up is Killorn, who is the oldest of the bunch, who had a nice 49-point season this year. But Tyler Johnson had 31 points, and Gord had 30 points in the regular season. Gord did have a nice playoffs, I will say. But
yeah. Like, keeping him wasn't the problem. It was at the price they chose.
Yeah. Because
if you're looking at it, would you rather have Anthony Cirelli or Yanni Gord on that contract right now?
Man, it's an easy Cirelli pick.
Yeah, definitely. And you'd rather just be like, okay, well, we're going to lose Gord.
Yep.
But their real problem, more than anything else, and this is going to be the problem that we run into with the other teams we're going to talk about, nobody can take on any money anymore.
Yep.
There are, 10 teams above the cap right now? Now, obviously, there's some LTIR considerations that will end up being factored in. Yeah. But 10 teams above the cap? 9 teams above the cap and one 300,000 away.
Another one less than $1 million of cap space. Like, that's
right.
A third of the league that is not even, you don't even pick up the phone if someone's asking to dump cap on you.
Right. And then there are other teams. Tampa Bay, $3 million.
Yep.
In trouble. The Islanders, $4 million, in trouble.
Yeah. There's not a lot of teams looking to pick up cap. Maybe New Jersey, maybe LA.
Right. You start looking at the bottom of that, and this is where I actually think Nashville has set themselves up nicely
to pick up some assets a little bit.
Because they can wait out the remainder of both free agency, where they can just keep waiting for a guy like Mike Hoffman to say, screw it.
I'm signing bucks or whatever.
I'm signing a 1 year, $2 million deal.
Yep.
And then Nashville can go out and be like, hey, we're also gonna go pick off Alex Killorn or Yanni Gord. Because right now, nobody has to do anything, right? Everybody's fine.
Yep.
But when it comes time for the season to actually come back and everything starts to get moving, everybody's going to start making decisions. And players want to know where they're going to be.
Yep. Especially as it inches closer, for sure.
Yeah. P.S. I killed that fly last week.
And we get a moment of silence for AJ's fly.
Yeah. Put an F in the chat for the fly.
He dead.
The F for both the fly and his funeral.
You should have. I'm so sad that I wasn't recording the other day when you were trying to kill it and you got super hyped.
I thought I had it because I hit it. And it dropped and it landed on my desk and I was like, and then he got up and flew away and no, little bastard.
I think that's how Tampa felt after they waived Tyler Johnson and then no one claimed him.
Exactly. Nobody claimed him. They woke up the next morning and what's his face was Julian Breezeball was like, here's all this space that I can play with. Somebody called Sorelli's agent, and then they were like, no, nobody claimed him.
Wait, what?
And he was like, he just texted himself the letter F.
He's in a group chat with his other phone. Like,
that's right. The old school NHL GM phones. He's got 5 of them, and he just sends all of them in a little group chat. He just sends Fs to each of them. A little sad face.
All right. We've been on Tampa for 12 minutes, so let's move on to another team with some work to do, and that being Vancouver. A team a little bit more relative to the Avs. They're about $1.5 million over the cap right now. Lots of old dudes on this team. I was actually a little bit surprised. Paying Louis Eriksson $6 million for the next 2 years. Jay Beagle $3 million for the next couple of years. Same for Anton Roussel. Not quite as old, but he's 30.
He's a hard role player, though.
Yeah, true.
Like Antoine Roussel, like, you know, he's going to give you 15 points, and you're like,
for $3 million. All
right, whatever.
On the defensive side, too, Edler's in the last year of his deal. Jordy Ben as well. They're a little bit tight. This is a 23-man size roster, so they can cut off some of these bottom forwards and probably sneak by.
Some really bad decisions here. Because you remember they watched Tyler Toffoli walk.
Yep.
For an extremely middle of the road contract in Montreal. It was like 4 years and like $4 million.
Because they kept giving out $3.5 million deals
to
Berlins and Berchies, and
they had the opportunity. They could have bought out Sven Berchi.
Yep.
They could have bought out Brandon Sutter.
Yep.
And that alone would have cleared up Tyler Toffoli cap space. And Sven Berchi played in the AHL last year. Brandon Sutter, I think, scored 9 points last year. Scored 17 points.
Not good.
So you're talking like these are like bottom of your roster guys that they are playing. They are paying over $7 million and chose to keep instead of paying Tyler Toffoli $4 million to be in their top 6. I mean, just baffling stuff. Now, my question about their cap situation, I don't know if Ferland is healthy. If he's not and he ends up in an LTIR position,
definitely more manageable. Yeah.
Then they don't have to get rid of somebody, but they still only have 6 defensemen.
Yep.
And their cap situation, it's just odd. Because they don't have a lot of guys locked down like long term. They've only got 2 players on contracts that are longer than 3 years right now.
Yep. And Tyler Myers at 30 and Nate Schmidt at 29.
Right. And like those are like 2 of their top 4 defensemen. So, you know, argue about their value all you want, but it's like whatever. It's whatever.
Sure.
But then they're going to have to pay Pettersson.
Yep.
Next year. They're going to have to pay Hughes next year.
Yep.
They've only got Besser for 2 more years at 5.875.
they have to have Thatcher Demko conversation at the end of next year as well. So
right. So if he actually lives up to that potential and takes that job, then they have that conversation that they need to have.
Yep.
Looking ahead, Bull Horvat's got 3 years left at 5.5. I think they're okay there. They're fine with that. JT Miller, same thing. It's just that they're outside of Pettersson and Hughes, and I guess we'll add Besser in there too. I think it's fair to add Besser in there. They're not super young.
Yep.
Like Horvat at 25 and Miller at 27, like it's fine that like those are right in the heart of their primes. That's McKinnon and Landeskog age.
Yep.
The problem is that they're not McKinnon and Landeskog caliber.
Right.
They're good. They're just not great.
And I mean, yeah, I'm looking through their guys that they're hoping to graduate, and they have a few. I mean, Nils Hoglander, Jet Wu. Maybe they're still hoping to get something out of Ulevi.
Yeah, but I think they're definitely I think Ulevi is going to have a shot in camp for them.
But cool. It's not like they have a stack of youngsters to get to either. Really, they have a few.
Yeah, some of these guys have not worked out. I'm curious what's going to happen with Cole Lind. He was picked with the pick after Connor Timmins.
Yep.
I believe Godoyevich was in that second round as well. And it's
50.
And it's like, okay, they need to start seeing some return on these guys, especially because they gave up Tyler Madden in the Toffoli deal.
Yep.
Who was ripping up NCAA. So they're in such a strange spot where it's not like they have a massive influx of youth on the way. They've got some guys that I like, but
even then, even Podkolzin is struggling to score in the KHL.
And Podkolzin was like, how good is he going to be? He works super, super hard. You're going to get honest effort out of him. You're going to get a real try hard. In terms of how high end of an NHL player is he going to be? Yeah. It's still the big question mark that he faces.
True. I don't have any argument against it. It's Vancouver. We talk about the Avs having some work to do over the next couple of years, but they're positioned significantly better than Vancouver is with the same kind of conversations being had.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough. I think the next couple of years, Vancouver basically has to walk the tightrope.
Yeah, they are where the Islanders are today is where Vancouver is going to be next summer.
Which we will talk about the Islanders in just a second. We do need to take our first period break and acknowledge Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR, with 8 different kinds on tap down at the DNVR bar, or of course dozens of flavors down at the farmhouse in Littleton, where you can get everything from them. They even have an awesome merch shop where you can pick up shirts like this agave wheat one I've got on right now. So be sure to check them out. If you don't want to go in, of course, you can always get curbside pickup as well. And you can get $5 off when you use code DNVR when you call them at 303-803-1380. And we have MSU Denver online as well. Great place. Cannot recommend enough, as I did go there and took online classes even. So can confirm it's an awesome school. They put a dynamic education at your fingertips without forcing you to decide between earning a degree and living your life. MSU Denver is the Colorado institution, providing rigorous and affordable online programs taught by professors who bring the real world into the classroom. MSU Denver graduates use their relevant degrees to land coveted jobs. Some of our very own staff members at DNVR are taking MSU Denver online classes. That was over the summer, both Ali Monroy and Harrison Wind. So be sure to hit them up if you have any questions as well. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook with Rudo and AJ. So, your beloved Islanders, AJ.
Yeah.
They have less than $4 million in space, and this kid, Matt Barzal, still isn't signed.
Yeah, so Pulak got the 2-year, $5 million deal, which
feels bad, man.
Doesn't feel great. Pulock he's okay. But I tell you what, he's got a killer slap shot. That thing is a bomb. But the rest of it,
Kind of okay. Yeah.
He's okay. Like, he's not bad. I like him, but it's $5 million, man. That's
seeing
a lot of money.
Seeing the Avs lock up Taze for 4.1.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. It's tough. They were in a bad spot. The Islanders were in a bad spot. They had to do something. So, and now with Barzal, they're.
I mean, let's start here. What do you think is a realistic contract for Barzal?
I think this is the hard part because technically his numbers have gone down all 3 years.
Yep.
He had the crazy point per game rookie year where he played next to Tavares, and that really amped him up
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and then not that him having a 60 back-to-back 60-point seasons and then being very productive in the postseason both years. It's not like, oh, what do you do with him? He's got this huge outlier of a season. Some of it you also know, hey, Barry Trotz is the guy and they're really low scoring. So you're probably not going to have an 80 or 90 point guy on that team.
Yep.
And I don't know that Barzal is quite that good anyway. He's very good. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's very skilled. I think he's probably more of like a 75-ish point guy.
Which
when he maxes out, not a 95 point guy.
But you're still talking about someone you're paying north of $7 million.
Yeah, it's hard because he's going to be the big RFA.
Yeah, this
year he's the COVID RFA.
Right. Yeah.
Last summer you had guys getting $8 and $9 million, and
right, but with the flat cap, yada yada yada,
yeah, 7-year deals and blah blah. Like all the teams were just lining up to give their RFAs those things last year.
Yep,
it's not the case this time around. I think they would love to get him long term so that they only have to do this once. I would be surprised if he took that.
Sure.
They've committed just an enormous amount of money to their forward core as it is.
Yep. 8 guys making $5 million or more. 7. It'll be 8 with Barzal if they keep everyone, but
yeah, it's just so much money getting spent.
Yep.
It's so hard to tell because I think 7.5 would be perfect for him.
So they need to shed $3.5 million basically.
Well, and Andrew Ladd played in the AHL for them last year.
True. You can.
But who's going to take on a 34-year-old with $5.5 million in cap space?
They're going to have to get creative, right? If you can bury Ladd a bit in the AHL, you save that $1 million contract space. Try and get. I know Lamorella loves his Leo Komarovs, but
yeah, we can do bury that guy too, and then you've got the most expensive AHL roster.
Yeah, you got to try and move out Komarov or something to free.
You bury both of those guys, you just freed up $2 million.
You're still not there.
Right,
but
now you've got 5.9 in cap space, and you still hate your life. Well, and that's where maybe you try and get Barzal on a 2-year deal at like $5.5 million.
A bridgy thing to just get yourself to
get through next season where you're not making big cuts.
Suzuki is coming off the books then, and
you're not giving up a Josh Bailey or a Brock Nelson just because you have to.
Fair. Yeah,
I think they should be trying to give up Eberle, but they freaking love that guy. What are you going to do? We've already talked about it. This is the hard spot in this league right now. You can't just give money away.
Right. It's it's super, super tough. I think the biggest money giveaway was a legitimate player in Ryan Murray going for a 5th.
Right, and even that guy, the big caveat with that guy is that he's going to miss half the season.
Right, it's still LTIR, yeah.
So I think they're in a spot, man, where they're going to have to retain it. They're going to have to get creative.
Yep.
To me, I think Andrew Ladd, they retain a little bit of money on Andrew Ladd and send him to Winnipeg for Roslovic. Attach one of those second rounders, one of those picks they got from the Avs, and have it go to Winnipeg.
Just to free up the space.
Yeah, because, you're
leading us to another team on our list in Winnipeg who they essentially have no cap space, despite they'll be flexible because Brian Little's not going to play hockey.
Yeah, they'll have his LTIR space, but they don't have a contract in for Roslovic yet, and they continue to have trade talks where I don't know why Roslovic for Mackenzie Weegar isn't done yet. It makes all the sense in the world. Neither team has signed either player. Like, what are we doing here?
Especially Roslovic, even as early as before the start of the season, was pretty unhappy with his role in Winnipeg. There have been talks about that for a while, that he didn't like what was going on with him not getting enough top 6 time and yada yada. So on Winnipeg's side, it certainly seems like Roslovic is gone one way or another.
Yeah.
New York maybe can take advantage of that, then maybe they find themselves an out.
Yeah. Lou has gone big and he's spent big, but he also did it under the assumption that everybody did, that they'd be getting $2 or $3 million in cap space every year.
Right.
I always tell people, do you remember right before the shutdown, right before everything went sideways for the NHL season, it was like a couple weeks before that, they sent out a salary cap projection that included as much as a $7 million cap jump.
There was a possibility that the cap was going to be $87 million for 2021.
There was talk that this thing was going to take, and GMs are conservative. They were saying $2 million.
Yep.
Mentally, they were planning for $2 million.
The NHLPA with the 5% escalator is saying
$2 million per year was their is kind of what they plan for.
Yep.
They say, hey, we think this is going to go up $2 million per year, and then if it goes up $7 million, we're not having these conversations about any of this. Right. Devon Taves isn't an Av today.
Everyone's making mad bank, and money is getting thrown around like candy. Yeah.
Taylor Hall's probably an Av.
Yep.
It's just a totally different world,
Yep. The what if the ripple effect would be gigantic. All right. Let's move on to another team that has to shed some cap, most likely here in the Washington Capitals. They're about $1 million over the cap. As far as I know, their whole lineup is healthy. And they have 21 players on their roster right now. So they could cut someone and be real close to the cap, but certainly probably still over and too close for comfort, to say the least.
Where's our Caps fan that's always in here talking about
right?
And Schultz?
Finally talking about his team, and he ain't nowhere to be found.
Yeah, we should have saved this for right at the end of the show.
That's true, when he pops in. Yeah.
I think it's a relatively simple solution for them. I think they just swap out one of those defensemen that they have, either Van Riemsdyk or Siegenthaler, drop him down to the AHL and then promote one of their young guys. To be honest with you, it should be Brett Leason. You took a second time entrance in the first round. The whole point of it is to get an NHLer right away out of him.
That's true.
He played in the AHL last year. Just jump him up there and let him get his feet wet in a depth role. Use that ELC.
Yep. Take advantage of what you can.
Yeah. Also, P.S. Don't take 20-year-olds in the first round.
Yeah. Definitely not the play.
It just blows my mind, man. I'm just like, how do teams do this? But whatever. Anyway. It's the love of the power forward, man. It's only power forwards that they mess with. Same thing with Borgstrom in Florida.
And Washington's problem is the commitment one. Outside of Ovi, who's up after this year, they have 4 forwards signed for 4 or more years. They have Vrana, who's an RFA at the end of this coming season, so they have to make a decision there. And that's pretty much it. Their entire D-core is signed at least for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's tight.
And Vrana's a real problem.
Yeah, because he's going to make good money.
Yeah, well, and obviously Ovi's a problem, just a different,
whole different animal that is.
Yeah. He's 35. You do the 1-year deal with him every year.
Eternity, yeah, right.
Until he decides that he wants to just go back to Russia.
Yep.
Whatever. God, their defense is all 30-year-olds.
Yep. Brendan Dillon at 29 is the youngster.
Well, it's like they've got a couple of 29-year-olds and the rest of them are 30. Depending on birthdays, These guys are all the same age.
Like all within 6 months of each other or something. Yeah. So definitely a weird team. They're not young at all either, outside of calling up a Leeson or something like that. Their youngest starter would be Vrana at 24. So
yeah. Well, that's where they need Leeson. They need McMichael.
Yep.
That's one reason I really liked them going after LaPierre was
someone you can potentially get in. And, yep.
They were exactly the kind of team that made a ton of sense to take a LaPierre swing. But for right now, though, they're just in a really awkward spot.
Yep. Agreed.
I think they're fine for this year, but then they're going to have to pay Samsonov, and then they're going to have to pay Vrana, and
especially if the cap doesn't bounce back. A team that's committed to guys this long,
yeah,
it's gonna be tough.
The universe is doing everything it can to keep Ovi from Gretzky's goal scoring record
for real,
because the first lockout, he didn't come over until he was 20.
Yep.
So lockout number 1, lockout number 2, that's half a season. Now a shortened season with the pandemic, and then the following year will be shortened as well. So you're talking, for a guy who's been unbelievably durable in his career, he will have missed like 2.5 seasons worth of games.
For things completely out of his control.
Yeah.
And 2.5 seasons is 100 goals at least for Ovi.
Yeah, you just think, in those 2 seasons, those aren't all 36-year-old seasons. Those are prime seasons.
Yep.
If you just did 50 goals per year, which for Ovi is a reasonable thing to do, you just add 100 goals.
Yep.
And you think, okay, well, he's had 100 goals taken away.
He'd be less than 100 away from Gretzky with 100 more goals.
This would be a realistic chase, and instead, it's like he needs like just under 200 goals to catch him. At 35 years old, like, hey, if he continues to be...
It's not impossible, but you're going to have to rely on him aging gracefully, which he could, certainly. But you're talking about he would have to continue production of a very consistent caliber for the next 5 years instead of if he was 100 goals closer, you're talking about he could catch him in like 2.
Yeah, even if he got old and dropped to a 30-goal pace, he's not going to 3 and change.
Yeah. So,
like, the universe has done everything they can to preserve Gretzky's record. I'm of the opinion that that's what this is all about.
It's all about Ovi.
It's the hockey gods being like, we refuse to give away one of our precious all-time records to a Russian.
Well, there'll always be a next one. So,
well, the next one coming out of Russia looks insane. That 15-year-old kid?
Yeah, that dude's a monster.
He looks so good, dude.
On that note, we do need to take our second period break here and let you guys know about Chevalier Mortgage. Mike and Virginia have been working for over 15 years in the business, so they're excellent at what they do, and they're also diehard Broncos fans and longtime supporters of us here at DNVR. You can call Virginia directly at 303-257-6578 or visit them at dnvrmortgage.com, where you can sign up to win free DNVR merch, either a shirt or a hat, and get yourself a free consultation as well. Since your home is likely to be one of your largest assets and your mortgage your largest debt, they believe it's vital for you to consider your full financial picture when purchasing a home. This includes considering your short-term and long-term planning goals, your investments, and your tax situation. Mike and Virginia will work tirelessly to find the best loan for your situation. Again, visit them at DNVR Mortgage at very least to get set up for a chance to win free DNVR merch and a free consultation. Great people. Love them a bunch. DNVRmortgage.com. Michael Chevalier, NMLS 1931006. Virginia Chevalier, NMLS 1910631. All right. A couple more teams to go here. These ones probably not quite as much work to do, but still going to be an interesting conversation. Vegas is going to have to make some decisions. They're currently $974,000 over the cap with a 21-man roster, and that includes Cody Glass if they're going to commit to the kid, which I think they will. But they're very, very tight with that $8.8 million that they ended up spending on Pietrangelo. So there's not a lot of wiggle room for them right now.
Their saving grace might be that one of their goalies is hurt. I think, was it Lehner who had surgery? And might miss like the beginning of the year.
Could be out for like 4 or 5 months, I think. So, and that's part of why, like, once they found out Lehner was going to have surgery, they're like, well, we got to keep Fleury. So,
yeah, and then your third goaltender is whoever their third goaltender is. I mean, is Oscar Dansk still there?
Doesn't look like it. Dylan Ferguson, maybe. Oh, no, Dansk is still there. You're right. Yep. One more year. So
sweet. Oscar Dansk is their backup then?
Yep.
And like they just weather that storm. Okay, we get through. Flower carries us for a month.
And yeah, hope.
And then the way that the cap hit gets calculated, he can come back. Lehner can come back just fine.
Every day players get cheaper.
Yeah, exactly.
So
if he's out long enough, they can just skirt it like that. And just try to avoid playing Dansk. You're going to play 5 days a week. Just don't ever play your backup. It's fine. Run Fleury into the ground in the first month of the season to save money.
Aren't they? Isn't he already run through with a sword? So
yeah,
it might be tough. But
yeah,
isn't Iguchi's like almost 18 now, right? And he's not particularly what everyone thought he was going to be.
Yeah, he's not a dude I've heard from since he was like 15.
Yeah, he was like, when he was 12, Pavel Barber was like super hype on him. But then, it turns out when you grow up and his height's listed as 5'3".
Yeah, you gotta keep growing. Like, it's just the reality of that, man. You gotta continue to grow.
Yep. So, don't know about that one coming to fruition, but moving on. The Edmonton Oilers, another one of the 9 teams that are officially over the cap. They do have a full roster, so it shouldn't be too hard for them to get under, but they do still have to sign Ethan Bear on their defensive end, who has kind of come into a solid piece for them.
He's turned into a decent player. That's the Ethan Bears of the world are the hardest ones to value contracts for me, because it, like with Ryan Graves, where you're like, this, like, he's an NHL player, but like, how good is he?
Does he go?
How much responsibility can
or does he go for 1.2 million? Like,
how much does it hurt us if we commit to this guy and he ends up just being kind of blah?
Yeah.
How much does it hurt us if we don't commit to him and he takes another step forward and his price goes up $2 more million because we didn't commit to him? Yep. It's just, those are the guys that it's such a tough spot. Where Bear has an advantage over a guy like Graves, he's only 23. So you could buy out his RFA years and be like, we'll see how this goes. And then when he gets to UFA years, if you really want to continue to pay him, then you pay the extra price to keep him.
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of this conversation here is they have to make decisions next year on their defense with both Adam Larson and Tyson Barrie hitting UFA.
Yeah, they also Clefbaum gone all year.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's are they finally going to give Evan Bouchard a chance? Is Philip Broberg going to get a look? Like, where do they go?
Which one of their youngsters do they try? Yeah.
Well, because it feels like Bouchard's been in the AHL forever. You know, he hasn't been. It was just, I think last year was his first year. It just feels like they've been waiting on that guy for a long time. Some of that is because he made the team immediately out of camp and then just sort of disappeared.
They gave him games and then who knows? But
yeah, and like he's been super good pretty much everywhere else. I really am. I'm still quite convinced Bouchard's going to be a good NHL player.
I agree. I mean, I think he's an NHLer, but
and if they're missing Clefbaum this year, that's the guy.
Yeah.
You know, I like a lot of their young guys, honestly.
I mean, I do too, but the problem is we're talking about their defense and you're still talking about a forward core that, sure, they picked up Kyle Turris, but is it that much better? Is bringing back Pool Party really gonna push their offensive depth over the hump? I mean,
if they get another decent year out of Tyler Ennis, right, and they just picked up Dominic Cahoon, they get a decent depth season out of Dominic Cahoon, just say 25 points, right, and like plays his role pretty well. If they get anything decent whatsoever out of Kyle Turris, and not an abomination version of Kyle Turris, but like a solid Kyle Turris. And then Puljujarvi is anything in the NHL. Kyler Yamamoto was a first-round pick. He's been in the NHL. It's time for that dude to step up. It's time for that guy to prove that he can play, you know, and he was really productive last year when he got to play. It's just he needs to play. He needs a role. I like their forward core. There's a lot of question marks, but there's a lot of upside to buy into there. I like most of their team. Why they decided to roll the dice again on that same goaltending duo.
Yeah. It was a choice.
I don't ever really know what they're doing up there. They did for everything that they do that I like, they make one or two totally inexplicable decisions that are high impact. Like, if Kyle Turris doesn't work out, it's fine.
Yep.
What did they lose?
Not too much. $1.6 million.
Like, it's just not a big investment.
Yeah,
it's just
true.
not.
That's true.
If they've made this investment, they get Kyle Turris hits. Puljujarvi becomes the real deal. Yamamoto lives up to the first round billing. Their forward core is good. They find a way to survive Clefbaum. Clefbaum being gone, and then
like you're asking for a lot there, though.
Sure, like you're asking for things to go well, but like they have the talent for it to be possible. Whereas in previous years, you're like, okay, well, we really need Josh Archibald to take a big step forward. We really need Alex Chason to do that one thing where he scored 20 goals one year. You know, we really need James Neal to be a 30-goal guy again. You know, this year there's a lot of guys that they can look to and say, we need just this from you. But then they turn around and they sabotage all of the good thing that they did by running back the goaltending.
Yep.
And it wasn't like the goaltending last year was so good that you were in a hurry. It was okay. And then it got to the postseason and was terrible.
Well, and the goaltending market was set on fire this offseason, basically. There were goalies jumping all over the place, too. So it's not like they didn't have options.
I don't.
It's certainly always exciting in Edmonton. We'll leave it at that. A couple more teams here. These ones, they have work to do. I think everyone's confident they'll get it done. Columbus has $12 million in cap space, but they do have the other big name RFA left in the market in PLD. So not really worried about them getting it done, like I said, but just curious at where a contract comes in for someone like Pierre-Luc Dubois in the flat cap situation.
They also, Gus Nyquist just had shoulder surgery today. So they are
potentially in the market for something else. Yeah.
That all of a sudden, that looks like a really good Mike Hoffman spot.
Yep.
Or Mikael Granlund spot.
True.
You know, that's a really interesting forward core too. There are some guys on that forward core where you're like, huh.
After going out and getting Max Domi, yeah.
Huh. They could make a really solid transition if they do this right. They could transition really nicely from the Dubinsky, Foligno Blue Jackets into the Dubois, Max Domi era.
Especially if they get stuff out of guys like Teixeira and Foodie.
Yeah, some of the younger guys that come up and Teixeira, I love him.
Yeah.
I think he's so good.
And then just to cap things off, another big RFA name still out there, and Jake DeBrusk in Boston.
Yeah.
Probably not quite as big as a PLD or a Barzell, but they're going to have to pay the guy. So $6.5 million is basically.
I said Barzell was the RFA of the COVID RFA. Dubois is also there.
Yep.
And I think that might be a game of the waiting game. Whichever one of those guys signs, whichever that one signs, the other guy can be like, huh. And they might just wait for each other. But in saying that, I mean, Barzell's been quite a bit more productive.
Yep.
Dubois does the heavier lifting in terms of the two-way game. So you're kind of having that conversation again about how you balance scoring and
on ice effect.
Yeah.
So you'll have to wait and see for at least some exciting things still to come this offseason, even if it necessarily doesn't involve the Avs. But, a lot of offseason left to go. Somebody might still do something crazy. You never know. I guess that's going to pretty much wrap it up for us today. Y'all know the drill. Thank you, everyone watching, listening, however you consume the podcast. We are sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 rated sportsbook app out there. And this week, they're giving you an amazing deal for the weekend. When you use code RAINBOW, when you sign up with your new account, your Sunday bets up to $100 are insured. That means if you do not win your bets up to $100, you will get that money back into your account. It's an awesome deal. Be sure to jump on it while you still can. All of these are limited time only. So download their app now and get in on it. There's a bunch of awesome stuff to bet on, whether it be Denver taking on Atlanta or any other number of sports too. You can bet on basketball. You can bet on European hockey. You can bet on table tennis. They still have a table tennis league going, which I imagine that goes year round. I don't really know, but
not a lot of weather considerations.
Yeah,
for
right.
Table tennis.
You're inside in like a gym full of table tennis courts. Are they courts? I guess they're tables, right?
Tables.
Yeah. You can bet on that too. So be sure to jump in with DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, download their top-rated sportsbook app and use code RAINBOW to get their can't-miss offer of $100 insured betting this Sunday. So jump on that and support us, support our partners. Y'all know the drill. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Risk-free coverage, paid out in site credits. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow talking about something, maybe expansion draft, maybe not. I don't really know. But 2 more shows left this week, and then, 5 days a week. You'll still have us here. So talk to y'all